Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to the Harborne Islamic Study Circle, HISC Seerah session 170. So this is our third session on the conquest of Mecca. And inshallah we'll be talking about Hatib ibn Balta'ah later on, but just a quick recap. The Khuzaa, who were allies of the Prophet ﷺ, they were massacred by Banu Bakr, who were allies of the Quraish. And the killing happened both in the holy precinct of Mecca, as well as with the tacit approval of the Quraish, which therefore invalidated or was a major breach of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Because of that, Umer bin Salam from the Khuzaa, he went and pleaded with the Prophet ﷺ, saying, look, you've got to do something about this massacre. We need to have revenge. And the Prophet ﷺ replied by saying, you have been supported. Then we talked about how the Prophet ﷺ saw a cloud, and he saw that as a positive sign. And again, it's about encouraging us Muslims to have optimism, read into events with a positivity, have a positive frame of mind, and link that positivity with blessings from Allah. Then Abu Bakr knew something was up because he saw his daughter Aisha preparing some food and special things for the Prophet ﷺ that he does when he readies for war. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, yeah, it's as if I can see Abu Sufyan coming to extend the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, which is exactly what happened. The Quraish had an emergency meeting. They delegated Abu Sufyan as their chief, their utmost senior nobleman, to come and negotiate with the Prophet ﷺ, to smooth things over, essentially. But as Abu Sufyan's coming to Medina, he bumps into Badr bin Waraqah, who's just coming back from Medina, having explained the situation firsthand as an eyewitness. So Abu Sufyan, he enters into Medina. Reports differ, but let's say he goes first to his daughter's house, Habiba, and she prevents him from sitting on the rug that the Prophet ﷺ uses because he's a dirty, filthy polytheist. Then he has audience with the Prophet ﷺ, who says, what's the matter? Abu Sufyan says, nothing, just want to extend the treaty. And the Prophet ﷺ then just basically walks away. So Abu Sufyan, as sort of, leader of the tribes, he goes and pleads with Abu Bakr, he pleads with Umer, he pleads with Ali to intercede on his behalf and on behalf of the Quraish, to no avail. So in desperation, he then asks 7-year-old Hassan to intercede on his behalf with his grandfather, as in the Prophet ﷺ. But then he is humiliated by going and sort of just making a public announcement in the mosque. The Prophet ﷺ, another report says he sent an ultimatum to the Quraysh, but they rejected that because it would have required them to break off relations with Banu Bakr, pay the blood money, which would have amounted to about 2,000 camels, and they weren't ready to do that. Then the Prophet ﷺ let some time pass, and then he dispatches Qatada bin Rabi and 8 men as a scouting expedition up north, and that's classic misdirection tactics. So people are thinking, well, something's going up, and maybe the Prophet ﷺ is going to follow up on the Battle of Mu'tah. But what is clear, and again, just moving on to this week's session, what is clear is that the Quraysh broke international law at the time. They crossed multiple red lines. They broke the treaty. Their allies committed a major breach of tradition by killing people in the Haram and killing women and children with their nighttime raid. But then Abu Sufyan, as he attends and meets the Prophet ﷺ, he doesn't get a sense of open hostility from the Prophet ﷺ. And he thinks, well, maybe the Prophet ﷺ is just busy. and then even when the Prophet sends the ultimatum, the Quraysh may be thinking, well, this is just empty words and maybe a bit of bravado. Maybe it's just a political move to appease the Khuza'a tribe, because these are the types of things that happen in realpolitik. So the Quraysh, they're not expecting war. They think that by sending Abu Sufyan as a high-ranking delegate, he's managed to somehow assuage the Muslims, or at least there's no open hostility against the Muslims. So that's fine. They probably think, well, Hudaybiyah hasn't definitively been revoked, so the treaty must still be in force, because if they were going to cancel the treaty, they would have done it face to face. So because it wasn't cancelled openly, they're thinking, well, probably it's still valid. So they go on in Mecca as business as usual, more in hope than expectation to begin with. So they're thinking, and you get this type of mentality with people who think that they are too important, that they are the real sort of center of attention. They are the center of the universe. They think, well, time's going to heal. That they'll rationalize their actions. They return to their arrogance, and they have a sense of exceptionalism. We can get away with these things because we are who we are. We are the Quraish. We can do wrong. We can, break treaties, go against the norms, and everything's going to be all right. But they underestimated the Prophet, and the Prophet has right on his side, and he knows the mentality of the Quraysh because he's known them and lived with them for over 50 years. So the Prophet, in his calculus, knows that this is probably what they're going to be thinking. That they are assuming that the norms that they're carrying on with are the same as the norms that happen already. So, and again, the things that we can learn from that today is that it's that the non-Muslims who should be in the state of utter desperation, because we Muslims, we need to believe in our strength. Allah's promised us that we're going to be the highest, and we need to be in a position where we acknowledge that we have the right on our side. We need to change our thinking, be more positive about ourselves and our own abilities. We need to be thinking that we're more self-sufficient as an ummah. We need to put our trust in Allah. And if we look at the realpolitik now, putting aside the fact that we're deliberately carved up into multiple nations which don't actually make sense, but the resources that we have in terms of the military resources and the natural resources, the oil under Muslim land, the gas under Muslim land, the waterways, if the Muslim Ummah was to recognize these things and harness them, then we can easily turn the tables and have a much more positive posture on the international scene. But again, that's just something for us to think about and something, inshallah, for us to work towards. So getting back to the Prophet ﷺ, he's made an announcement that every single Muhajir, every single Ansari needs to go out on a battle. And sent out word to some of their allied tribes that they should also send some delegates as well. And then you've got a few hundred being sent by one tribe, or 1,000 by another tribe sending others, because they need to be part of this war effort, because the Prophet ﷺ has sanctioned this as fardu ayn for the Muslims, for the Muslim men. So eventually they've gathered 10,000 people under the banner of Islam. And again, if we talked about how things have changed. There are 313 or so in Badr, and that's merely 7 years prior to this. And within those times, we've seen how the Muslims have grown, but more exponentially in the last 2 years since the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. So we now are in a situation where you've got 10,000 Muslims ready to march. They don't know where. And the Prophet ﷺ, he made a dua as they're preparing to say, "Oh Allah, do not allow my plans to become known to them," as in the Quraish. So he wanted to have utmost secrecy and a complete news blackout. And this is war. This is serious stuff. It said that the Prophet ﷺ left on the 10th of Ramadan, again, during the month of Ramadan, and they arrived within 10 days, 18th or 19th of Ramadan, which is, considering you're taking 10,000 people, it's a really significant feat to go there that quickly. But the day before they're leaving, the Prophet ﷺ didn't tell the army the destination. So the day before they're leaving, he announces that we will be attacking Mecca. That is the destination. And some people may have surmised that. Other people would have been taking it into the misdirection, thinking that they're going to go up north. But now he's made it clear this is where we're going. And again, it's important to psychologically tell the army what the plan is, where they're going, so they can physically and psychologically prepare for that. And obviously, the Muhajir will be so ecstatic at this opportunity to march upon Mecca, the place that expelled them. So then what happened is that there was one Sahabi called Hatib ibn Abi Balta'ah. When he found out that there are different narrations, but one of the narrations is when he found out that they are going to march on Mecca, he decided to do a really foolish thing, a treacherous thing, and tip off the Quraish. And he wrote a letter, and he went to dispatch it to the Quraish. But just a bit about Hatib. It's said that he actually fought in the Battle of Badr. So he is one of the highest in the ranks of the Muslims. But his journey to Islam is that he was an immigrant into Medina. He's not Quraishi. And then he brought his family with him. And some narrations say that he was from a slave family. So they're not a rich family. They've not got any tribal allegiances within Mecca. So they're and again, we've talked about this before. The way society was constructed, you needed to belong to a tribe, and it was the tribe who protected you, and who fought for your rights. And this is predominantly how non-Islamic societies operated, through this tribal allegiance. And he's in Mecca, but not of any specific tribe. He may have family alliances, but he's not a member of a tribe. So no tribe is obligated to protect him. So it's said that he converted to Islam, and he did the hijrah, and he's in Medina. But for whatever reason, his family, especially his mother, but his family and his children, remain in Mecca. So he's got his family there. He's from a poor family, so probably perhaps a slave family, and he's not able to bring his family. So he thinks, and this is his rationalization, that if the people of Medina go and they attack Mecca, the people of Mecca might, and they're known to act irrationally like this, the people of Mecca, the Quraish, they might go on a killing spree of anyone who is allied or supports Medina or the Muslims. And so he fears for his family, that because they're not part of a wider tribal network, they will be particularly exposed. So therefore he writes a letter, and there's different versions of the letter. One version says that the letter was addressed to the Quraysh, and it says the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims are leaving with an army. they might be heading to Mecca or they might be going to some other place, so take precautions. So again, fairly ambiguous, but just trying to tip them off, essentially, or give them what we would call the heads up that something might be going on, because we've already said that the Quraysh think that they're out of the woods. They don't think that the Muslims are going to attack. A few weeks have passed, nothing has happened, and there's no consequences from the breach of the treaty. Another version says the letter that Hatib wrote is that the Prophet is heading towards you with an army like the night. And again, basically saying, look, there's 10,000. He doesn't say there's 10,000, but it's a huge amount. They will descend on Makkah. So the Prophet is heading towards you with an army like the night, and he is rushing towards you like a river. And I swear by Allah, even if he was to come to you alone, Allah will help him over you, because Allah will fulfill his promise. So again, it's more of a heads up. It's just enough to curry favor with the Quraysh, which is what he was trying to do. But again, in the context of war, this is treachery. You're giving away state secrets in the time of war, and this is unforgivable, even in this day and age. And so he writes this letter. He gives it to some other anonymous person. So some lady, and it said she was from Banu Hashim, Abdul Muttalib's Banu Hashim. He gave us some money to smuggle this letter to the Quraysh. He didn't tell her what's in the letter. He just says, this is an important letter. Take it as quick as you can to the Quraysh. And she's folded it up and tied it and pleated it within the braids of her hair, so no one's gonna notice. And again, this is how the subterfuge happens. So then she unknowingly is taking this letter, and she's on the way to Makkah. And again, so Hatib, trying to do his utmost to get the letter there, chooses someone who's not going to stand out, someone who's going to be inconspicuous, essentially, going about their normal business. So then, obviously, the Prophet ﷺ got word of this through Jibreel. So Jibreel told the Prophet ﷺ, the lady is taking this letter, so you need to stop her. And this is again part of Allah responding to the dua of the Prophet ﷺ to keep things secret from Makkah. And again, even if she was to get to Makkah, it would only give them a day or two's advance notice. But even that, it's important that they don't get. So, according to one narration, the Prophet ﷺ dispatched Zubair bin al-Awam and Ali ibn Abi Talib. And another narration, it said he dispatched Ali and al-Miqdad. And he said to them, basically, you go to such and such a place, you will find this particular lady on such a caravan. You stop her and you bring back the letter she has, and you bring it back to me. And he described the lady for them. So obviously, very vividly, so that Zubair and Ali or al-Miqdad, they would be able to carry out the mission. So they went, they found the lady exactly as described by the Prophet ﷺ, and they confronted her, and they said, basically, give me the letter that you have. And then she goes, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Obviously, she's told this is a secret, this is highly confidential. She goes, I don't know what you're talking about. So, as they would do, they searched through her belongings. They looked at her camel, her saddle, her bags, and they couldn't find anything. And so Ali says, I swear by Allah that neither has the Prophet lied, nor have we been lied to. So basically saying, look, the Prophet's been told of this by Jibreel. That's, qati information. That is definitive. And he specifically told us these things. So we're not making a mistake in this, right? So because Prophet said this has to, you must have this letter. And Ali says to the lady, either you hand it over or we will strip you and search you completely, right? And so then she obviously realized this is serious. There's no way of getting around this. She needs to comply, and the game is up. So she says to them, turn around, and they turned around, and then she sort of untied her hair, took the letter out, and then gave the letter to them. So then they obviously took the letter and took her back to the Prophet ﷺ. And it said it's within a day of, within a few hours of leaving Medina. So they got back to Medina. And so she's there as a prisoner. They've got the letter. And so the Prophet ﷺ, she tells the Prophet ﷺ what happened, that Hatib gave me this letter, gave me some money and told me to give it to the Quraish. But I don't know what's in the letter. And so the Prophet ﷺ then called Hatib and said, so he's got the lady there, he's got the letter, she's confessed, she's fessed up. And then he says to Hatib, is this your letter? And so Hatib says, yeah, this is my letter. And then as soon as he says, yes, this is my letter, and again, you can imagine that there was a council of the elders, as it were. So the Prophet, you've got Ali, you've got Miqdad, Al-Zubair, you've got the lady, you've got Hatib, and probably you've got the council of the Prophet, Umer and Abu Bakr, and probably people from the Ansar. And he then says, yes, this is my letter. So then Umer immediately says, Ya Rasulullah, allow me to chop his head off. Allow me to chop the head off this munafiq, because he has become kafir. Right? And so, and he wasn't rebuked for that. So the fact that Umer understood this action of utmost treachery, this is utmost seriousness, this is akin to doing kufr, that you are in a situation of war, you're helping, assisting, tipping off, entering into a treacherous alliance with the enemy. This is akin to going outside of Islam. You've become a munafiq. The Prophet ﷺ didn't allow Umar to do it just then. He turned to Hatib and said, Ya Hatib, why would you do something like this? Right? His reply is, O Rasulullah, why would I want to leave Iman, in belief in Allah and His Messenger? I don't want to do anything. I did not do what I did, leaving my faith, nor do I prefer kufr over Islam, and I haven't changed who I am. I did not want to betray Islam or to be a munafiq. So he's specifically responding to what Umar is saying, that he is a munafiq. He's left Islam. He said, look, no, that's not the situation. I've not left Islam. I'm still a Muslim. I don't prefer kufr over Islam. I haven't changed who I am. I'm still the same person. I'm not here to betray Islam. And then he goes on to say, I knew that Allah would fulfill His promise and execute His command. You have been promised the conquest of Mecca. That's going to happen. Right? So I knew that's going to happen. I have complete faith in that. Rather, I wanted to establish a minor favor with the Quraish so that my family and my property is protected. Because all of your other companions have family that would protect their other relatives, but I don't have any. So he's explaining the situation. And he's probably reconciled to the fact that he's going to be killed, but he wants to get his version of across. But most important for him and his legacy is to establish the fact that he's still a Muslim. He did this, this irrational act, this error of judgment, but these are the reasons he's still a Muslim. Essentially, like we said, he just wanted to curry some minor favor to protect his family. So the Prophet ﷺ, he then said, Hatib has spoken the truth, and nobody should say anything about him except good. So the Prophet ﷺ, he accepts this as treachery, but he's essentially said, that's it, end of matter, case closed. No one should criticize Hatib. I understand what he did. It was wrong, but that's the end of the matter. But then Umer, still fuming and angry, so wanted to chop his head off because he was a munafiq. He says, Ya Rasulullah, he has betrayed Allah and his messenger, so let me take his head off. Let me kill him. So the lesser charge, so the utmost charge was becoming a non-Muslim. So the lesser charge is of betrayal, right? I accept he's still a Muslim, but he's betrayed you. He's betrayed the Muslims. He's a spy, right? Let me execute him as a spy in a time of war. And again, the punishment for this type of betrayal, again, it's fairly straightforward. Off with their heads, essentially. And again, Umar wasn't rebuked for that. But the Prophet ﷺ, and this is such a beautiful response, the Prophet ﷺ, and again, it's sort of, it's an amazing response. The Prophet ﷺ says, did he not witness Badr? And how do you know, O Umar? Perhaps Allah has looked upon all of those in Badr and said, do as you please, for I have forgiven you. So as soon as Umar heard that, he began to cry. And he said, Allah and his messenger know best. And regarding this incident, Allah revealed in the Qur'an, the first verse of Surah 60, Surah al-Mumtahanah, O you who have believed, do not take my enemies and your enemies as allies, extending to them affection while they have disbelieved in what came to you of the truth, having driven out the Prophet and yourselves only because you believe in Allah your Lord. If you have come out for jihad in my cause and seeking means to my approval, then don't take them as friends. You secretly try to befriend them, but I am most knowing of what you have concealed and what you have declared. And whoever does it amongst you has certainly strayed far from the soundness of the way. So Allah is saying, look, this is completely out of order. He doesn't say that Hatib became kafir because of this, but said he strayed far, far away. Right? But again, it's quite clear, do not take as friends and allies the enemies who are the enemies of Islam, especially those who've driven you out because of your beliefs. And the scholars have talked a lot about what this actually means, especially in the time of war. Who are we allowed to ally to? We might come on to that in a second. But the Prophet basically said, case closed. Don't want to hear anything about this. Allah has, and this is how high the status of the people who fought in Badr was. The 313 or so of them is that basically, the Prophet said, basically, Allah has said to all of those in Badr, do what you like for the rest of your life because you have been forgiven everything because of how much they supported the Prophet ﷺ in the Battle of Badr. And Hatib was one of those. He fell into a grave error on this occasion, but he's been forgiven. This is an exception to the rule of treachery and spying and going against the head of state, especially in wartime. If anyone else was to do this, then it's clear cut. The scholar said it's clear cut. The verdict of them is that they is very severe, that they would tend to lose their life because of their actions. But Hatib had this get out of jail card, and he could play that, right? And that was, I fought in Badr. And again, we see how when Umar ibn al-Khattab became Khalif, when he would give the stipend to people, their sort of allowance from the treasury, he would prioritize the people of Badr, the Bayt al-Ridwan, and above them it will be the house of the Prophet ﷺ. And so there would be a differentiation in the income based upon when they became Muslims. So the early Muslims, certainly al-Bayt would be at a high level. The people who fought in Badr, the Muhajir, the people of the Pledge of Ridwan, and then it goes down from that. And again, it's just showing the status of these Muslims. And Allah says in the Qur'an, not equal of those that became Muslim before compared to those after the conquest, right? So and again, the great thing to notice from this is that following this, no one ever criticized Hatib for this action again. When the Prophet ﷺ says, case closed, Hatib lived for, it said, another 20 years. No one raised this issue. Nobody said that, look what you did on this occasion, right? And again, it's overlooking the sins of our brothers and not judging each other for the one excess that we might make, right? It's also said that the Prophet ﷺ chose Hatib, again, just to keep his status up amongst the people as one of the emissaries to Muqawqis, the king of Egypt, and he was known to sort of live his life free of this shame later on. So that's the story of Hatib ibn Abi Balta'ah. The army can now set out. They've got the letter, and the lady, we don't know anything about the lady. We just assume that she was let go because she was an unwitting accomplice in the situation. She didn't know what it was about. It could have just been a family matter, right? She didn't know the gravity of the letter, and so she was let go. We don't know anything else about her. She wasn't punished, and certainly Hatib wasn't punished. And again, so some of the lessons from this story, obviously you can't get past the knowledge of Allah, and you could even interpret the actions of Hatib knowing that Allah's going to know about this and his intentions. So you could even say that Hatib knew that Allah would know that he's doing this, but Allah knows the extent and the reasons why he's doing this, and it's not an outright betrayal. So again, although Hatib is doing something sinful and grave sin, his calculus, living the time properly, is that he's not left Islam. He's not disbelieved. He's rationalizing it, but again, Allah knew this, and Allah is responding to the dua of the Prophet ﷺ, and that's how important the dua is. Oh Allah, do not allow my plans to be known to them. So Allah, the Prophet ﷺ made that dua, and Allah responding to that, by exposing this plot against the Prophet ﷺ. And like we just mentioned, the scholars of fiqh have said the penalty for treason, it's clear, it's execution, it's death, right? Umer said, when it was said that Hatib is not a murtad, he's not left Islam, he said, look, he's betrayed the Prophet and the Muslims. Let me execute him. So that betrayal, that treason, the verdict is death. And again, we still find that in many countries around the world today, even in some of the Western liberal countries, so-called, they still have the death penalty for treason. So there's nothing surprising for that, and you need to have such a severe punishment to act as a deterrent for these types of grave treacherous actions. And so in the books, and especially nowadays, there's a lot of discussion around what what constitutes betrayal, and what's the punishment for betrayal, and can people be excused for their betrayal? Most scholars say no. Betrayal is betrayal. And Hatib was excused because he had this personal get-out clause. He fought in Badr, and Badr is so high up there amongst Islam and the early Muslims that was his get-out of jail, literally his get-out of jail card, and so he could play that. What constitutes betrayal nowadays? Well, inshallah, if we have a couple of minutes at the end, we'll talk about that, because, as I say, it's very controversial. But just going back into some of the lessons, the other thing that we can think about is, even though Hatib was one of the elite of the Muslims, having fought in Badr, he still could fall in such a major error and sin, right? Again, we are all sinners, there's no doubt about that. And even the elite of the Muslims can do wrong, as we've seen here. None of us are free from sin. Even if the Sahabi, who are the best generation, they even made mistakes, and they did some major sins, and we'll talk about a couple of those in the next few months, inshallah. Yet, even though we sin, Allah still forgives us if we repent appropriately, right? And again, just the mercy of Allah, that He is there to forgive us all of these sins if we do it sincerely. And again, Allah is criticizing Hatib severely in the Qur'an, saying he has gone far, far away from the right path. Didn't call him a disbeliever, but he's gone far, far away. But yet he's still able to forgive him and make sure the Muslims treat him with respect after that. It's, as I say, not judging people by that singular mistake. Another really important thing is again, we lose sight of this today, especially in the age of social media. And this is the importance of verifying the news, confirming the reports. Even though the Prophet ﷺ has been tipped off by Jibreel, who's been informed by Allah, he still has to go through the process of confirming and verification of the news. And even when he's got all the evidence there, he's dispatched Ali and a companion, they've brought back the lady, as stated. They've got the letter. They've got the word of Jibreel saying this is what's happened. Yet he still calls Hatib and asks Hatib, is this true? And Hatib admits it. So he gives him the opportunity to confirm the report. And then also what's really important is asking him, why did you do that? What possessed you to do such a treacherous thing? Again, the penalty is clear, but he still wants to hear from Hatib why he did it. And that's a really important value in our legal system, is to try to understand and rationalize what happened and why it happened. And then the judge, the qadi, would give the verdict based upon the circumstances. And so it's important to understand the context. So give him, yes, he's done something terrible, but ask him, well, why has he done it? Ask him to explain it. And Hatib gives the explanation, right? And so that is really important. We have to confirm the news. We have to verify the reports. And again, when we receive things, especially on social media or through lines of gossip, it's not just transmitting it, pressing the forward, right, or retweeting, etc. We need to do our utmost in verifying those things, especially if they're sensationalist, especially if they have a grave consequence on other people's reputations, people's lives. It's really important that we need to verify and confirm those reports. And like I mentioned, a few minutes ago, Hatib's frame of mind is that he recognized that he probably will be killed, and he's reconciled to that. But he wants to protect his legacy and explain that his actions did not take him outside of Islam. He's not a kafir. That was the most important thing to him. Right? Umer said, let me kill him, he's a kafir. He's a munafiq. And he's at pains to explain he's a Muslim. He hasn't left Islam. He's not a munafiq. Right? That was the only thing that was important to him, to make sure that his legacy as a Muslim is protected. He's still a major sin, but he's still a Muslim. He wants a Muslim burial, right? And so that's the focus of his response. This is how much I love Islam, right? I'm not worried about the consequences of my error and judgment, but do not label me as a kafir, because that's it's not true, but that is just nothing that he wants to live his end of his life with that shame around him. Also, we can see the loving nature of the Prophet ﷺ, the forgiving nature of the Prophet ﷺ, right? He's there giving Hatib the opportunity to defend himself, not allowing Umer to execute him, but also protecting Hatib in that sense, accepting his explanation, and counting back to the good that he's done in terms of the way he's defended the Prophet ﷺ in the Battle of Badr, right? And again, the Prophet ﷺ's the perfect balance as a human being in all of these attributes. And again, we can see the nature of Umer as well in this, where he is so strict in defending the honor of Islam, of the Prophet, right? That as soon as he hears what he's done, let me kill him. Not because he's angry towards Hatib because of Hatib. He wants to defend Islam and make sure people know that Islam should be protected. It's his love for Islam that he wants to do that. Yet when it's said that he's forgiven because of the fact that he was in Badr, Umer, this stern, fierce, don't mess with me person. That one phrase where Allah says, look, what do you know? Maybe Allah's forgiven them and said, do as you pleased, right? That immediately softened Umar's heart. He's got this external sort of bravado, but as soon as he heard that, he burst into tears and started crying, right? Perhaps he started crying because, he was angry at himself for his own hastiness and eagerness in trying to kill Hatib, or because he too fought in the Battle of Badr, and the blessing of being one of those people fighting in Badr, that Allah says, do as you pleased, I have forgiven you. Anything that you do for the rest of your life, it's been wiped clean. All the ill that you do, it's been wiped clean. So again, we get a sense of the beautiful nature of Umer as a person. He can appear harsh, but actually that harshness is for Islam, but he's a very soft and tender-hearted person underneath that. And so, and again, like I've said briefly, that it's important that we look at people's lives in their totality, right? People commit errors in judgment. People make mistakes. A righteous person can commit a mistake, a sin, right? So long as they don't keep making the same mistake, they don't keep causing, doing the same evil or the same fitna or the same lies. A righteous person can make a mistake, right? But we shouldn't judge the person purely on the mistake, and that is the the thing that we tarnish them with forever and ever, right? And the Prophet said in another report, the people of nobility and status, when they fall into a mistake, essentially give them a break, cut them some slack, give them a wide berth, right? So when we have some people who do good in the community, whether they be scholars or imams or righteous people, they're doing the good for the community. They may do mistakes, right? We shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yes, that they should be reprimanded for what they do, but it's important to look at the entire legacy. And so also the Prophet is saying, look, don't judge Hatib just on this mistake. Remember all the other good that he's done, and especially the people of nobility and status. They have that. I mean, none of us are mistake free. None of us go through life without making mistakes or sins or major sins, right? And then taking things out of context and then just judging someone just upon that, that's something that we should try to avoid. Give the Muslims the benefit of the doubt, and again, that's an important lesson from this. And again, some of the scholars have said, look, Allah's chosen to use this as an example for us, right? If Allah had willed, we wouldn't have heard about this. Allah could have made the lady and the camel get stuck in a sandstorm and delay them, or they could have run out of water, or they could have ended up somewhere else, or they could have been swallowed up by the earth, or could have been attacked by other people. But no, Allah wanted to make an example and show us how we deal with these situations, right? And that we still have to do the work, right? So this is the situation, and the Prophet ﷺ had to send people, stop the lady, bring her back, have the court, and make judgment. We still need to make effort in our lives, in the things we control, and then put our trust in Allah, right? So that's really, really important. And finally, I'm not sure we've got time for that, but one of the things to do is to unpick what allying itself with the disbelievers means. And there are other verses in the Qur'an, that, oh, you believe, don't take the Jews and the Christians as allies, they're allies of one another. Anyone who takes them as an ally becomes one of them. God doesn't guide the wrongdoers, and other verses, whoever allies with them is one of them. And again, the different scholars throughout the times have taken different stances on allying yourself with the enemy of Islam. And these are really important things, and it's not just stuff that you see in Ertugrul and can sort of take it from there. These are real things that are important even in this day and age, where you've got armies invading Muslim lands, where you've got non-Muslim armies occupying Muslim land. How do you respond and react in that situation? What is it to be a spy? What is it to be somebody who passes information or who supports them? What is the material level of support that you're allowed to do? Are you allowed to do your businesses or and sell things to the troops? Or are you a double agent? Or are you a fully fledged agent for these people working against the ummah, right? For your own personal gain. And again, people misuse some of these things, and nowadays you get a lot of these so-called jihadi groups that are too easy to call others non-Muslims, do takfir, and it's takfiri groups who basically say that anyone who doesn't believe in their version of Islam is taken outside of Islam, and they use different verses like what we talked about to justify that. Again, don't want to get into that, but just to say that this modern phenomenon of takfir, it's very, very new, the classical scholars have a very different approach to Islam. But we've always lived under, for many generations, for over 1,000 years, under an Islamic state, and it was well known that you support each other in Islam. You might try and support other Muslims against you, but you definitely don't go make allies with the non-Muslims against Islam. You don't go making treaties with the Christians, with the Mongols, with the Templars, with these other people whose aim it is to defeat Islam. And so anyone who is allying themselves with these people, with their armies, they really need to think long and hard about what they're doing and seek guidance in how to live their life appropriately. So I'll finish there, but again, the important things here are that Hatib, he was forgiven because of his mistake, because of what he'd done in Badr. And, we've got the infinite knowledge of Allah as part of that. And now the army is able to carry on and continue its march towards Mecca. And then, inshallah, next time we'll do the fact that the first people that they come across are Al-Abbas, and then they come across Abu Sufyan, and we'll talk about the Islam of these people next time before they actually enter into Mecca, inshallah. So I'll just finish there, inshallah. Sorry for going over a couple of minutes. So do remember us in your prayers, and do remember the Ummah in your prayers, and stay away from evil, and do the necessary things in this day and age, which is hands, face, and space. So take care, inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. وَلَسَ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Jazakallah khair. Thank you, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.